The year's 1347. Dawn breaks over a medieval town, but there is no sound. No baker stokes his oven, no blacksmith hammers at his forge. A single rat, sleek and dark, scurries from the shadow of a doorway. In the 14th century, one cough crossed continents and ended an age. How did a microscopic killer topple kings, free peasants, and birth the modern world? Long before a single cough was heard in a European town, the story began near the vast expanse of the Gobi Desert in the 1330s. In the grasslands of Central Asia, Yersinia pestis cycled among wild rodents like marmots, passed between them by fleas. It mostly stayed local, a danger to rodents and the occasional hunter, until the world changed. Trade routes expanded. The Silk Road connected far east to far west with unprecedented efficiency. It carried silk, spices, jewels, ideas, and something deadly. The bacterium found a new host, the black rat, and the black rat's fleas. The black rat lived alongside humans, in granaries, in storehouses, in crowded, unsanitary streets. Hidden in sacks of grain and bundles of cloth, an invisible army marched oasis to oasis, post to post. Caravans stopped in market towns like Samarkand and Tabriz, and left behind infected rats. Fleas would jump from dying rats to the nearest warm body, often human. Reports of a mysterious fatal illness trickled out of Asia and the Middle East, distant rumors as fanciful as dragons. The final leg would be by sea. The plague reached the Black Sea. The world was more connected than ever, and about to pay a terrible price. The year 1346 marks a pivotal moment. The plague arrived at Kaffa, a thriving Genoese port on the Black Sea. Under siege by the Golden Horde, a devastating sickness ravaged the Mongol forces. Fever, severe pain, grotesque black swellings. Jani Beg, facing a collapsing army, turned misfortune into a weapon. By contemporary accounts, plague-riddled corpses were catapulted into the city. The defenders were horrified. They threw them into the sea. Too late. Fleas swarmed the bodies. Rats infested the besieged city. In autumn 1347, a small fleet set sail for Italy, carrying sailors, cargo, and black rats in the holds. On those rats were fleas carrying Yersinia pestis. The ships had become floating incubators. Across the seas, sailors sickened. By Messina, many were dead or dying. Townspeople found ghost ships crewed by the dead. Sicilian authorities ordered them away. Too late. Rats scurried ashore, carrying the plague. From Messina, it exploded across Sicily. Other ships spread it to major European ports, Genoa, Venice, Marseille. The disease moved inland along trade routes. By 1348, it engulfed Italy, France, Spain. By 1349, England, Germany. By 1350, Scandinavia and Russia. The Trojan horse was opened. The invisible army conquered a continent. Medieval Europe, dense and unprepared, was defenseless. To understand what it did to bodies and societies, we must see how it acted, and how people tried to make sense of the chaos. Once the plague took hold, its progress was swift and terrifying. The most common form was bubonic. First signs were flu-like: fever, chills, vomiting, terrible aches and pains. Then swollen, painful buboes appeared in the lymph nodes, groin, armpits, neck, darkening as tissue died. For many, death followed within a few days. Other forms were deadlier: septicemic, purple black patches, often killing within a day; pneumonic, spread by coughing, terrifyingly contagious. Historians estimate between 40% and 60% of Europe died within a few years. In some cities, the toll reached 75% or more. Whole villages were abandoned. Funeral bells fell silent. Mass graves were dug. Rituals of mourning collapsed. Giovanni Boccaccio wrote of brother forsaking brother, husband, wife, parents their own children. Fear severed the most human bonds. The grim tally was not just a number. It was a wound carved into the soul of a continent. People looked to heavens, sins, and neighbors for answers. A crisis that bred zeal, fear, and terrible acts. They could not see the fleas or the bacteria, only the swift, terrifying wave of death. Many saw divine punishment. Flagellants marched, chanting and scourging themselves to appease an angry God. Welcomed at first, they were soon condemned by church authorities as dangerous and heretical. When prayers failed, fear curdled into blame. Jews were falsely accused of poisoning wells and spreading disease. Horrific pogroms followed. Entire communities were wiped out in Strasbourg, Mainz, Cologne. Foreigners, beggars, and those with leprosy suffered too. The wealthy fled to villas, hoping isolation would save them, as in Boccaccio's Decameron. For most, escape was impossible. The poor were trapped, watching neighbors die. Even institutions failed. Doctors refused patients, priests last rites, notaries wills. Governments were paralyzed. Laws went unenforced, workshops closed, trade ceased. Some embraced wild feasts, others locked themselves away. Society unraveled into terrified individuals. The plague was not just killing people, it was killing the very idea of society itself. When the first wave subsided around 1351, survivors emerged into a much emptier world. A third to a half of the workforce had vanished. The old surplus of labor was gone. Suddenly, peasants and artisans could demand higher wages. Landowners competed for workers, offering better pay, food, and terms. Elites fought back. In England, Edward III's Statute of Labourers, 1351, tried to freeze wages and bind workers. Similar measures spread across Europe. But enforcement failed. Employers quietly broke the rules. Workers left for better deals. Tensions fueled uprisings. The Jacquerie in France, the peasants' revolt in England. Though crushed, the old relationship was broken. Manors commuted labor services into cash rents, a monumental change. Serfs became tenant farmers, more freedom, more control, and a share in their surplus. Many moved to towns, learned trades, joined guilds, and became free wage earners. In the West, serfdom eroded within a century. In parts of Eastern Europe, it persisted or strengthened. The Black Death broke feudal chains not by revolution, but by demographic and economic necessity. The plague profoundly shook the spiritual world. The church's rituals, prayers, and blessings seemed powerless. Priests and bishops died like everyone. Why couldn't the Pope in Avignon stop the pestilence? Disillusionment reduced trust in the institution, fostering more personal, questioning devotion. A morbid obsession with death emerged. The dance macabre, skeletons leading pope, emperor, peasant, and child in a final dance. Art turned toward realism and emotion. Loss of Latin literate clergy and popular demand lifted vernaculars, English, French, Italian, German. Writers like Chaucer and Boccaccio spoke in the language of the people. The crack in monolithic authority opened paths to reform, and ideas that would bloom in the Renaissance. From darkness came hard-won lessons. Italian ports pioneered quarantine, 30 days, then 40, to hold disease at bay. Cities formed health boards, enforced sanitation, and recorded deaths. Early epidemiology. Thinking shifted from the supernatural to the observable, towards science that might one day understand and control. One cough marked the end of an old order and the beginning of our modern world.